Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Dan and I'm here to bring you another FPL video. So in this one we're going to be looking at Game Week 1 team selection. This is based on the initial draft I came up with on the last video, just with some slight alterations, so I'm looking to go through those with you guys here. And also to add to that, I've got some player comparisons just in terms of who we could potentially swap certain players to in different positions to either restructure the team or just have a look at alternate options at the same prices. So we're going to get straight into the new graphic here that showcases the starting 11 that I've kind of ended up with after, like I say, that initial draft phase. So some slight changes in the goalkeeper, the defence, and pretty much that's it. So I've moved David Raya I've moved Jose Sarr from my original draft into David Raya. I think after looking at the stats and also trying to kind of give myself as much flexibility in the money as possible, I think it just makes sense to start with a 4.5 million goalkeeper. The 5 million ones are great in terms of statistics and what they offer us, but that 0.5 million definitely can prove pivotal later down the line, or potentially just in those first initial few weeks in getting the best squad possible. I think two people to mention here as well after Raya are Trent and Salah. Both of those two are unnegotiables for me. I don't think they're going to be moving anywhere. I don't like to lock in too many picks really at this stage because we still have a month of pre-season essentially before the season kicks off. But those two aren't going anywhere as it stands. I've also moved on Reece James to Ben Chilwell for now. Really, the kind of my logic on this one was really based on the fact that Chelsea haven't made many moves in the transfer market as of now, and they've lost Rudiger and Christensen. They still do have Thiago Silva, but it's making me think that maybe Reece James potentially can play in that right centre-back position. Doesn't mean that he won't score points, but I'm thinking that potentially Ben Chilwell will be more threatening and offer a potentially more explosive return. Of course, this is really early days. That can 100% change. And also from a defensive perspective, I think that he may offer a little bit more. Moving into Cancelo, I think really in terms of players, he is my third, if I could consider a locked-in pick at this stage. I think he's a non-negotiable. I will still be checking out minutes again, though, on the pre-season for all of these teams and all of these players, because I am interested to see what Pep does, especially if they do. They have been linked with Cucurella of Brighton, so if they do end up signing another left-back, I think potentially his minutes could be a little bit more reduced this season. But we will have to keep an eye on that. I still think he offers a great creative potential, and when you've got the likes of Erling Haaland as a number 9, all of a sudden his assist numbers could go through the roof. So I think he's definitely one to be considering. Then I've moved Matty Cash to Kieran Trippier. So still the 5 million mark, which I did like as a price point. I do think that Trippier, though, looking at those first initial fixtures, I think he's going to offer a little bit more. And also the reason why in the bench there I've got the 4 million or the 4.5 million defender is because in game weeks 3 and 5 potentially I could, if it was a 4.5 million defender, I can look at the fixtures. If I think there's someone that stands out as an obvious pick or swap, should I say, for Trippier to that 4.5 defender for those two specific game weeks, I think that's the way I would potentially like to play it, rather than booking in transfers, kind of navigating using potential bench options instead. So I like the idea of that, and I think that's why I've kind of swung more towards Kieran Trippier over Cash. Not going to mention, of course, Salah again. He's a phenomenal pick from an FPL perspective. We don't need to say any more, I don't think. Bruno Guimaraes, I'm still sat on him, and the same for Neto as those kind of medium price midfielders. We will see though after this page, I've got some detailed, well, not necessarily detailed, but I've got a full list of optional or potential options really in terms of those price points, give or take, let's say $1 million. And that's why it was also important that I wanted to keep that $1 million in the bank to offer me that flexibility without damaging the kind of core structure of the team. I've then gone with Luis Diaz. as the £8 million mark. I think that price point is going to be really pivotal, really important to have at least one player in that position. You could argue two. It would just mean restructuring slightly, but we can get to that in a moment. And yeah, I think he's Fulham away. I mean, that's a fantastic fixture. Liverpool, I think, are second or third on the fixture ticker. They offer so much potential attacking threat that I think he's a no-brainer from my perspective, really. So yeah, Gabriel Jesus. Ultimately, he is at the 8 million mark as well. So what you can do is remove him down to a 4.5 million striker and put the 4 million or the 3.5 million in this case into our first bench option of the 4.5 million midfielder and turn them into the £8 million midfielder, resulting in a 4-5-1 formation where you have then the two £8 million midfielders. So essentially he's interchangeable as well, but I do like the potential that he may offer. I think he's a proven Premier League player. I think Arsenal, he might not necessarily tick to begin with, but he's if you like, a riskier pick for me, and I'm willing to take that risk as he may be on penalties, although his record isn't fantastic on that. And I think the way that Arsenal play, he's going to offer that poacher, that kind of finesse finish option for them that potentially they were missing a little bit last season. They created a lot of chances, which we'll get to again later on when I mention a potential midfielder as well for Arsenal. And then Erling Haaland finally, as I think he is probably, if you can consider non-negotiables for me, I think he could be Kane, but he's just tilts that little bit extra for me purely based on captaincy. I think sometimes FPL managers don't put enough value on the captaincy, and if you look at the fixtures between Salah and Haaland, it's quite clear that game weeks 1 and 2 they seem to be the perfect fits, from Fulham for Salah and then Bournemouth for Haaland. I think it's a perfect duo really in terms of those two premium picks, which is why he's ended up as being pretty much, I would say, a nailed on pick. But again, this is all on the premise that the pre-season works out for these players, and we see something from them. So I think there's not really any major value in going through the bench, except to note that the reason why I've kept it as the 4.5, the potential 4 or 4.5 in slot 2 and 4.5 is to just put as much money in the starting 11 as possible. So that's the team as it stands. I'm much happier, I think, now than I was at the beginning with it, but it's still so early days that there's plenty more tinkering to be done. So I'm going to continue on with as I mentioned, the player options in different slots. So first of all, we have the goalkeeper position. As I said, I pretty much landed on David Raya just after looking at some of the statistics, thinking that extra 0.5 million over Jose Sa could prove very important as I build the team and change it around. So I have put another 4.5 million goalkeeper that I think is worth mentioning in Sanchez. I think Brighton are definitely going to be a better team again this season. They looked like they're improving under Potter all the time, to be honest, but definitely under the back end of last season they looked really, really solid. So I think he is 100% an option. Do I think that Brighton's fixtures are better than Brentford's? They're about equal, in my opinion. Brighton, of course, got that, what you could argue, a potentially difficult fixture with Manchester United, whereas Brentford, off the bat, play Leicester away. I just feel like I fancy Brentford's fixtures a little bit more than Brighton's on that basis. I have also mentioned, though, of course, Jose Sa, who I started with, Aaron Ramsdale and Eduard Mendy. Those three come in at £5 million. I think there is an option to go for a 5 million keeper, but I always seem to land on that 4.5 million option. Every single year I'm drafting, I'm changing things around, and I always seem to have to take the 0.5 million or the million, if you stretch even as high as 5.5, from the goalkeeper. There's just so much more upside in putting the money in a midfielder or a striker position than a goalkeeper. The potential of save points is still, every 3 saves is only 1 point, whereas the extra million between, let's say, a Neto to a Trossard, or a Neto to a Coutinho, a Neto to a Rafinha, a Neto to, and you get the point. I feel like there's much more potential to put the money in other areas of the pitch. Also to mention as well with Mendy, I have seen him in a few drafts. I do think he's an option, but again, it goes back to the same reasoning and logic I used for Ben Chilwell. I'm still not 100% convinced on Chelsea's back line. I just need to see them in pre-season, I think, before I would consider him. But he is at £5 million an option, I think, regardless. So that's the goalies. We're going into the defence next. So I haven't put Trent on here as an option to swap, really, because for me, he's, again, an unnegotiable. So you could argue that he can go to a Robertson or a Cancelo if you don't have him in your draft, or just, a slightly lower defensive option, just if you need to save money, or you just think that Trent's not gonna perform this season, I guess. But I just think his underlining stats and the eye test tells us otherwise. He can pick an absolute worldie of a pass. I think he's a phenomenal asset to own, and I think at 7.5 million, the game's got it wrong. He should have been an 8 million, really. So I think take advantage of that, really. It wouldn't surprise me if we see his value jump to 8 million plus before the end of the season. So that's why I haven't put him in there. We'll start with that first. I've put Trippier there as that 5 million mark because Matty Cash and Digne, I think, are options at that price point. I put Matt Doherty in there as well, just because I would like to start the season, I think, with a Spurs asset. I do like the look of their fixtures, but I just don't know how many minutes he's going to get. And I think he offers the same potential as Perisic, if not more, because he's proven in the Premier League. We know what he did under Conte at the back end of last season before he got injured. I think at that extra 0.5 million, when we're talking about marginal differences, that 0.5 again could prove important in either the striker positions or the midfielders rather than the defender in terms of upside. So that's why he's there. I haven't put Perisic in here for that reason, really, but although he is an option. Creswell as well, I think he ultimately is a set piece taker for West Ham. He has produced some great free kick set pieces as well in terms of crosses. I think he's an option maybe when West Ham's fixtures get better. Not just to begin with, but as that 5 million marker, I definitely think he should be mentioned. Then moving into Chilwell and Cancelo, who do I think they could be? Well, Chilwell and James have already had that discussion. Could be either, could have both in your team. I would just essentially watch pre-season detail for them, see who they sign in the transfer market, and also just watch how they're looking in terms of a defensive outfit. Laporte and Diaz in terms of optional City assets that are both 6 million respectively. So again, if you're trying to find an extra bit of budget and you can't quite squeeze to Cancelo, but you want to cover City as an asset, arguably I think they could be options. Laporte offers a fantastic amount of threat in the box from set pieces. Arguably so does Diaz, although maybe he doesn't score as much. And then of course Andy Robertson. In this particular draft, that would mean moving the 8 million Luis Diaz mark. Again, because for me, Trent and Salah, I think, are unnegotiables, and you'd have to move him to another team first before Robbo fits in there. But at 7 million, again, I think he's 0.5 million cheaper than he should be. He's 100% an option. Again, Liverpool being almost top of that fixture ticker, one to consider as well. So that's the defenders. Moving into midfielders in terms of alternatives, we've got Luis Diaz, as mentioned, can quite comfortably be any one of these: Saka, Maddison, Mount or Foden. I would say Arsenal, Chelsea's fixtures, City as well really look better than Leicester's. So maybe Maddison is one to watch for later down the line, or one to mention and think about. Phil Foden is the kind of the mini game that you play in terms of fantasy with Pep Roulette. It's the famous how many minutes does this guy get? I think he has got potential to absolutely be consistent in terms of an FPL player, but would I consider him at the beginning? Probably not. Saka and Mount. Saka really is just the alternative option to Jesus. He was originally in my draft until Jesus signed for Arsenal, and then I just swapped him round. That could change, of course, come the beginning of the season. And Mason Mount, I think he's always looking like a threat for Chelsea, really. I think he's a great option at 8 million as well. So then moving into the mid-priced midfielders now, really, or the lower end of the spectrum in terms of Neto and Bruno Guimaraes. So there's quite a substantial amount of midfielders in that particular area. We have Souček from West Ham, we have Ramsey from Villa, Gordon, Wissa, Trossard, Ward-Prowse. There's lots of people here that offer threat for different reasons. It could be set pieces, it could be headers in terms of in being there in the box, penalty takers like Zaha, and one to mention to do with Gabriel Jesus in terms of assist power, I believe, is Martin Odegaard. I think at 6.5 million, he's definitely a cheaper option as an Arsenal midfielder who could offer a fantastic amount of value based on Jesus signing for Arsenal now. Marcus Rashford gets the nod here for a one to watch, really just because Ronaldo continues to get linked with a move away. He would be the default number 9, I think, for Ten Hag. Arguably, you've got Martial that is going to contend him for that position. Maybe a Langer. I'm not sure if he could play in that position. But at 6.5 million, he's already made it quite public on how much of this pre-season, how much he's ready for it. He's hungry for a new start and to kind of prove the naysayers really from last season after he did have a very, very weak season. But potentially he could come back and really prove a point. So definitely one to watch. Need to be seeing more though of United in pre-season first before any decisions are made. And then finally that moves us last but not least into the forward position. So not as much, I would say, options or wiggle room here. Gabriel Jesus, as mentioned, he could really be Saka, or you could just move the money to the midfielder as the second 8 million midfielder option rather than the forward. I've opted to go with both of them for now. Sorry, 2 strikers for now. But Jesus could easily be downgraded to Antonio, Ivan Toney, Ollie Watkins, or even move upwards towards Darwin Núñez once we see maybe a bit more of him and we understand how many minutes he's getting. But Antonio, Toney, Watkins, all very, very arguable options and picks and choices, and they save you a little bit of money as well. Toney saves you $1 million there, Antonio and Watkins saving you 0.5 each as well. Haaland, very, very simple, straightforward swap into Kane. I mentioned that in the initial draft video. I think it's a no-brainer swap if you need to, and potentially any fixture swings, it looks like it's an obvious move. I have mentioned a few cheaper options there in Ronaldo and Vardy. With Ronaldo, again, it's kind of a question mark on whether he stays in the Premier League, plays for another team. Chelsea linked with him currently. Would he perform there? I don't know. But at 10.5 million, it's a very, very awkward price point. Essentially, you're saving $1 million, but I still think that Haaland, Kane, even Vardy offer a little bit more guarantee because we still, again, don't know what's happening with him and Manchester United. And yeah, of course, Jamie Vardy, the last one to mention there. He's only 9.5 million, and some statistics clearly prove that this guy smashes it in terms of the beginning of seasons. I think he has that rest over the summer. He comes back. He absolutely, hits that form. He scores goals for fun. He does tend to drop off, I think, but Leicester don't have any European football. Not that he featured much in it last season anyway, but they don't have any other fixtures really to be congested or to be contended with. So he's arguably an option at 9.5 million. So that's going to wrap up the video, guys. I'm hoping that you like the new layout, the new graphics in terms of the squad and the team selection. I've kind of changed that up from just the screen share option. I probably will still offer a screen share when I do maybe some live streams or I do some live tinkering sessions. But I thought the graphic maybe makes a little bit more sense in terms of visuals and understanding a little bit clearer on where my thoughts are. The last thing to mention, down below I've just put some details underneath me here of the mini league code, so please feel free to join that. I'm thinking of a couple of ideas really with this. Let me know your thoughts on what to do with it, but maybe we could do some either subscriber based goals or something moving forward as the channel grows, hopefully throughout the season, potentially offering some kind of prize pool or certain prizes based on how many subscribers I get. Let me know your thoughts on what you think about that. I've also put the in the bank as the 1 million and the 0.5 just because in the bench option at the beginning. So if I go back to the start of the content here with the slot number 2 is the 4 million and the 4.5 million defender. I've made sure that essentially you can see the difference. If you went for a 4 million midfielder here in this structure, you would have $1 million in the bank. And if you went for the 4.5 million defender, it would be 0.5 million in the bank. So again, I just thought with these extra visuals, we can see a little bit more clearer what the starting 11 is versus what potential options we do have moving forward. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Plenty more content to come during pre-season and throughout the season. So thank you very much again for all of the support so far. If you're new around here, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, give the video a like, really helps me out, and look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.